Warning, this video features spoilers from Alization's ending and beyond. If you're not caught up with the story or don't want spoilers, leave now. Recently, Sword Art Online Volume 24 Unital Ring 3 book cover has been revealed and people are losing their minds as Kirito appears in his Rising outfit with the Night Sky sword and the Blue Rose sword, as well as a seemingly familiar person in the background. In this video, we'll talk about what's happening in Unital Ring 3, who the other characters you see on the cover are, why that person is most certainly not Eugeo, and why this cover, unlike the people who love jumping to conclusions thing, is not spoilery at all, unlike what Unital Ring 1 cover was like for people who were just starting War of Underworld anime. Welcome everyone, it's me Gamerturk, your most reliable source of Sword Art Online information on YouTube, and this is an entire video about the cover of a single book. Obviously, as mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is gonna be a spoilery one if I am to explain things and speculate myself, so we will have spoilers from Volume 18 Alicization Lasting, Volume 19, 20 Moon Cradle, as well as Volume 21 plus Unital Ring content. Let's get you all up to speed first, though I don't particularly need to spoil you of Unital Ring in general, since Unital Ring 3 cover has nothing to do with Unital Ring the game. I'll just read the synopsis for you, huge thanks to Gishimenas as usual for his translation, and a whole lot of stuff will become more clear regarding the cover. In a 200-year-older Underworld, a fateful meeting awaits Kirito. A reunion with Kikoka Seijiro, the official from the Ministry of Internal Affairs Virtual Department. This leads to Kirito, Asuna and Alice being invited to visit an underworld where 200 years have passed since the Great War, awaiting them when they once again descended on the world were Ronnie and Tease's descendants, and also... So, this is the incarnation of the man calling himself Star King. Pleasure to meet you, Kirito-kun. The man calling himself the commander of the Integrity Pilot Order has the same eyes as him, who Kirito had once lost. Meanwhile, in the world of Unital Ring, the greatest malice that has got its sight on Kirito and friends finally reveals themselves. So yeah, if you have finished reading volume 18, most of this is not shocking for you anyways. Kirito and Asuna spent about 200 years stuck in Underworld, and once they logged out, Underworld was locked to a 1-to-1 speed. Kikoka formally invites Kirito, Asuna and Alice back to Underworld, though obviously this is not the dive they had in the epilogue of volume 18. That one had no involvement from Kikoka at all, where they had first met Ronnie and Tease's descendants, Lorane, Arabelle, and Shtika Shtrinen. Reki is just causing himself more pronunciation issues with these names. Now, in that meeting, we know that was a short dive, and all they got to do was to formally meet each other and drink some tea before having to log out. This second dive, which is quite closer to their first revisit in terms of time, because remember, Underworld is running at 1-to-1 speed now, this one goes quite different. They obviously have official permission from Kikoka, which how official that is can be argued due to the other spoilery reasons that I won't get into, and they get to meet the commander of the Integrity Pilot Order, who has the same eyes as him. Obviously referring to Eugeo. And this is where we'll get into major spoiler territory, along with why this person is most certainly not Eugeo. During the 200 years Asuna and Kirito were stuck in Underworld, they pretty much went into Space Age, which wasn't even all that hard considering the potency of sacred arts anyways. All their technological, quote-unquote technological devices are not really technological, they just apply sacred arts in different ways, much easier than manually inventing electricity, combustion engine, jet turbines, etc. You just burst elements and shit happens. With the rapidly evolving technology, the sword-wielding Integrity Knights got severely outdated. Now, we don't know how many shifts there were in these 200 years, but we know the Integrity Knights are now called Integrity Pilots and are now mainly, well, pilots, as well as pseudo-astronauts or stuff. They just fly their planes everywhere that look like Seto Kaiba's Blue Eyes White Dragon Jet, and during this time, for evolving the world into Space Age, Kirito and Asuna are known as Star King and Star Queen. Now, Star King is quite interesting personality, and I do hope he comes back. Those who read Volume 18 Epilogue know what I mean here, but obviously, the Kirito we got is not the Star King, not anymore, or not yet, depending on your view. But he is still recognized as such in Underworld, and that's why the Eugeo lookalike refers to him as Star King. But you see, that sentence alone, "Pleasure to meet you, Kirito-kun," is the proof alone that this is not Eugeo. Because if it was Eugeo, Star King Kirito would have certainly met him a long time before. And if he were to be Eugeo, he would have to be recreated from Kirito's memories in the first place, which would force him to know Kirito in the first place, and also be quite an incomplete recreation in the first place, since you can't really average the existence of an entire person accurately based on how his boyfriend remembers him to be. That's literally the main reason Professor Tetsuhiro Shigemura needed thousands of SAO survivors to recreate Yuna. With the help of a deep learning program, just age alone was not enough. Same case here. Also, Abek wouldn't be able to draw Eugeo with green eyes if his life depended on it, and this guy has green eyes. Okay, that shitpost aside, then who is this commander of the Integrity pilots? Simple, there can be a couple theories of course, but it's either a descendant from Eugeo's family, or it is a clone created from Eugeo's properties, who is thus nothing but a different person in the same shell, both of which have precedence within the established rules of the series. Laura and Shtika look pretty much exactly like Ronye and Tize, despite being descendants of something like 5 or 6 generations, given that this is 200 years after the War of Underworld, simply because much like our DNA, the Seed Nexus Underworld generates new humans based on the properties of their parents. I mean, you can barely see them in the back of the cover in front of a center cathedral, but a better look would be from volume 18, Alicization Lasting, so here you go. So if we assume that a borderline exact Eugeo lookalike is just as likely to come into existence, but I find the second option to be more likely. Based on Moon Cradle, we know quote-unquote recreating humans is somewhat possible, however it is not really recreating per se. It is not a body what makes a human him or herself, it's their life, their memories that nurture them throughout. It's a common concept we even have theories about here in real life. If we were to recreate Mozart from his DNA, for example, would he be just as successful as one of the biggest musical talents in history? Not really, no, because our interests nurture our talents to a great extent, whereas our interests are mainly created by our personal environment. Eugeo's kindness and love had come to be thanks to his life with Kirito and Alice, thanks to his status as someone who must continue a worthless task for his entire life due to Alice getting taken away, instilling in him a sense of judgment and fairness that made him question what is right and what is wrong, etc, etc. And that, in this theory, is where Kirito, the Star King Kirito, comes in. Kirito is, let's be real, is in no shortage of regretting his painful past, but Eugeo's death is for sure the top of the line there, which is evident even after he leaves the Soul Translator. So it certainly would not surprise me in the slightest if Star King, slowly changing from Kirito we know over the course of the 200 years, at a certain point tried to recreate Eugeo. That is the second possibility here. Star King tried recreating Eugeo based on his own memories of Eugeo and nothing more, and failed at it, because while a distant memory is enough to create a not so illusionary partner to accompany you, it is not enough to create an entire person. On top of this, as things stand, it is implied that the memory of Eugeo within the Blue Rose Sword has sacrificed himself to save Kirito once again in the final battle against Vecta, so there's not even a secondary reference point to average a personality without bias. All in all, it's very likely that Star King's experiment has failed in recreating a proper Eugeo, but it was successful enough for the Integrity Knights, Integrity Musketeers, Integrity Janissaries, or pilots to have a commander at a certain time within those 200 years. Another possibility, of course, is that he's a descendant of Fanatio and Berkuli that somehow happened to look exactly like Eugeo, but I feel like that's a bit of a stretch to make. It would look more like Berkuli and Fanatio than Eugeo if that was the case. Now, I would like to explain why I consider this cover picture to be non-spoilers. You see, to know this is most certainly not Eugeo, it's already clear if you watch the Human Realm arc. Eugeo is dead, just like Alice Tuban, and there is no proper way of bringing back the dead. So with that information alone, it is only delusional for someone's first guess to be, that must be Eugeo right there. Because all things concerned, the only conclusion possible here is, that must not be Eugeo given the circumstances. But there are also reasons that publicly require me to go, just trust me on this, when I have to share a community post where I don't want to spoil people explicitly as to why it's not spoilers, which is something I can share here. In fact, I already have. Eugeo's echo within the Blue Rose Sword is implied to have been wiped as well. And we know for a fact that the human recreation process does not really work as one would want it to, on top of the fact that this second dive is the first time that Commander is meeting Eugeo. If it was Eugeo, they would have met sometime in the past 200 years for him to have, well, met the Star King Kirito, because Kirito could not simply have it any other way. Though I can see one final possibility, which is a very wild guess by any means, and I left this to the end because again this has the potential to be a massive spoiler if it ends up being true, that is. So I wanted to add another layer of spoiler warning here. I mentioned Star King being an interesting character and hinted at things earlier in this video for those who read Volume 18 Epilogue. Well, that's my final guess. Star King is the antagonist of Unital Ring. In Volume 18, after their 200-year dive, Kirito and Asuna request Higa to delete their memories. While Higa does delete Asuna's memories, he copies over Kirito's consciousness before deleting it from his brain, and thus has a copy of Star King Kirito in his hands. When he boots the memory up, Star King instantly recognizes he is a copy, but unlike what happens to Flocklights that realize they are not the original, Star King's consciousness does not collapse. On top of this, Star King asks Higa for a connection to Underworld and suggests to find an old friend for help, someone who is very persistent at not dying their final death from the bottom of the ocean. During this conversation, Star King makes numerous remarks that he will fight to preserve Underworld, not within Underworld per se, but in general. And I certainly can see Star King Kirito utilizing the Seed Nexus to achieve exactly this, and can thus also be responsible for the recreation of a Eugeo-like puppet to remind him of his past after 200 plus years of life. And I certainly would love to see a continuation of that narrative following Star King and how he has fallen completely away from humanity. I love how some people act like Star King is the coolest shit ever without even knowing who Star King is, to be honest. If anything, Star King is the grandpa who is tired of your shit and yells at you for stepping on his grass. People have these absurd headcanon portrayals of Star King, completely disregarding the fact that he no longer has an Asuna and has lived 200 years to ensure peace in Underworld. He's not your edgy 16-year-old Kaneki, he is the 216-year-old Gramps who became a veteran in countless battles and wars, so drop your edgy portrayals there, please. With that final rant out of the way, I think I accomplished my goal in this video. That is it from me today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Likes are always appreciated. You can discuss all relevant spoilers without spoiler formatting under this video in the comments. This is as deep spoiler content goes, so no need to be shy at this point. We also have a Unital Ring 3 speculation chat room in Gamerturk Discord, so if you want to go ahead and speculate, Discord server link is in the description. Make sure to subscribe for more Sword Art Online content and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I upload new videos so you won't miss any of it. Make sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter as well, because I will soon share a special 10% discount code for my Lens Squad merch, which will be active from April 17 through 19, so don't miss out on that special campaign. As always though, thank you very much for being here, a special thanks to all my patrons and channel members as always, and I'll see you next time. Until then, stay cool.